And now I'm on the 12th lock, and sitting beside me is the owner of the barge I am on, Jenny Wren. And Jenny does tours along the Royal Canal on the barge. Jenny, welcome to the programme.
Thanks very much, Darren. I'm delighted to be here.
Okay, Jenny, can you tell me a bit about yourself and how you came to be involved on doing barge trips on the Royal Canal?
Yes, indeed. Well, it started about 15 years ago. I arrived to the Grand Canal and fell in love with it immediately. And I was involved with the community there in Salins for a couple of years with my son. He was 2 at the time, and For a couple of years I had a kind of a nomadic, I suppose, lifestyle, having split up with my son's dad, amicably, thank God. But I decided that I wanted to be involved with barges, with the canal. I just had such an incredible passion for the canal, and so my family were able to help us to get the whole family to get a barge. So that's how I came to actually have this barge. 13 years later, I was able to think about opening a business. I'm a jewellery designer by trade and also a singer, and I just found that financially it was very hard to generate an actual steady living from these two passions. So with the addition of the boat, it all came together, and I generated a career, which is basically driving my boat, involving jewellery workshops, singer-songwriting workshops, and also bringing passengers, mostly family, local community, up and down the Royal Canal, and sharing the magic that's there every day, all year round.
We're on the 12th lock at the moment. Can you tell me what parts of the Royal Canal you do your tours on?
Yeah, I operate mostly between the 12th lock and Kilcock. Each of the trips are about 2.5 hours long. So, say for example, the Castleknock to Leixlip would be one trip, and then Leixlip to Maynooth to Kilcock, and so on. So I operate between Castleknock and Kilcock. I can do one-way trips or return. So a one-way trip would be 2.5 hours in one direction, and the return trip then would be maybe 1.25 hours, then turn the boat and come back. So you could start in Castleknock, have a little bit of lunch, and turn the boat around just after Clonsilla and come back to the 12th lock here, or go to Leixlip, or perhaps go from Leixlip to Maynooth, have a little time out in the playground and go for something to eat, and then back to Leixlip. So they're all bespoke trips, and they're all private charters. So it's really up to the families what they'd like to do for the day. Who's aboard? Are there kids? If there's adults, they might prefer a certain style of trip. But it's all based on basically satisfying the wants and passions of the customer, of the passengers. So photographers love the deep sink because it's stunningly beautiful, full of nature. The kids love the locks. We go through the locks, and we pass through those whether we're going up the level or down the level, and the kids really get a kick out of those, kids and grown-ups alike.
What's the deep sink?
Oh, the deep sink is it's 3.5 kilometres of basically black limestone and granite. It's an incredible thing, post-industry, I suppose. I mean, the canal was built a long time ago now, but it's kind of a post-industrial gift to the people, really, where they blasted through these 3.5 kilometres of granite and black limestone. Some of it is actually 40 foot deep, so this is the deep sink. This is the reason why it's called the deep sink. But the canal itself was actually fairly under-surveyed. So there was, I mean, these days there's a surveyor for every metre of construction or engineering in Ireland, or in anywhere for that matter. But back then there was actually one surveyor only, so it was very under-surveyed, and they didn't realise they were going to come across this massive land and rock. Well, they knew the mass was there, but they just didn't realise how long and arduous and expensive it was going to be to actually blast through it. So the deep sink is the passage between Castleknock railway station, basically, and Clonsilla railway station. It's an overgrown, it's an incredibly beautiful, overgrown piece of paradise that is there for us to enjoy.
We're talking there about, you mentioned there about the history or heritage of the Royal Canal. Can you tell me a bit more about the history or heritage of the Royal Canal? I understand that has a rich heritage, like.
Oh yeah, well, it's absolutely soaked in history. The Grand Canal came first. The Duke of Leinster was the first person ever to actually travel on any of the canals in Ireland. He was the first passenger aboard a boat on any canal in the country, but had a very well documented falling out with the directors of the Grand Canal, and he's said to have promised that he would build a better canal, a bigger one, that it was going to eclipse the business that was going on the Grand Canal. A few people put in for the tender for it, but he won it in the end. I think largely because he had the most money. The budget at the time was 20,000. Was it £200,000? I think at the time. I think that budget may have been blown the first 3 months of construction, so the budget was blown out the window. He ended up actually running out of money, and the building began in 1790, but when it was actually built, it was finished by public funds. In 1870, they finished building it. So I think the deep sink took years to blast through all of that rock, and it was dug out by men's bare hands. There was no machines, there was no JCBs, nobody had invented the battery. The incredible thing about it is, it's 146 kilometres of canal. It is a trench that has been dug out by people's bare hands, basically just the labour, man and horse, and obviously horse-drawn boats first of all, before they motorised them when the railway bought the canal from let me think what year that was, 1847 I believe the railway bought it. They were going to put the railway in the canal, but they decided that would be a bad idea because...
railway in the canal?
Yeah, they were going to put the railway track in the canal. They bought the land.
I know what you mean,
yeah. But they figured out fairly quickly that it wouldn't work because the foundations would be very difficult to establish, and also the bridges, the locomotives at the time would have fitted under the bridges, but they were hoping to expand the size of the trains, and therefore it would have become a really difficult thing. They would have had to increase the size of all the bridges. So for that reason, they decided to build the railway beside the canal. And this is the reason why the railway and the canal are so interconnected. It isn't really for any reason apart from the fact that they own the land already. So it seemed logical to do it that way.
I think you mentioned this at the start. Where does the canal finish up? Where's the start and where does it finish up?
Yeah, it starts in Clondra.
Where's that?
Clondra is beside Tarmanbarry. It's in Longford, just right at the mouth of the Shannon and the Camlin River. So it begins there and it actually ends in Dublin. So it comes, it travels up where it passes obviously here in Castleknock into town under the Croke Park. You actually go under the seats of Croke Park to get into the Grand Canal Basin, crossing the Liffey and into the Grand Canal Basin. So really from Dublin to the Shannon. Begins in the Shannon, ends in Dublin, at which point you can then go through the Grand Canal dock and onto the Grand Canal and go down the Grand Canal and back onto the Shannon. So the Shannon connects it and Dublin connects the two canals.
All right.
The Greenway is coming now in the next few years, and that's going to be an incredibly fantastic thing for the people of Ireland, and hopefully the canal will be minded and looked after during the building of the Greenway. It's very important that the canal is there's a lot of work that needs to be done to maintain and keep it and look after it and mind it and make sure that it's the canal that is the reason for the logic, the logistics obviously of the Greenway are all based along the canal, so somebody can cycle or walk, jog all the way from one end of the country to the other beside the canal. So hopefully the beautiful kind of post-industrial phenomenon that is the canal will be also very carefully looked after and treated to the same kind of love that the Greenway is getting. So that's both a wonderful thing and a slight concern, because there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen on the canal that should really have happened before the Greenway came along. So hopefully that will be the case, and that all the canal, both the canal and the towpath, can benefit from the wonderful potential of the Greenway.
How long, you mentioned I think it's 15 years, how long have you had your barge and doing trips? And can you tell me if there's much interest among the public in going on the trips?
Yeah. Well, I started off about a year ago, didn't know if anyone was going to be interested in coming to the party. I knew that there was a really good friend of mine on the Grand Canal doing trips, and I hoped that my trips would have similar interest, and I've just been blown away by the reaction. From the moment I started, and built it slowly, I must say. I'm not looking for world domination. I don't want to disturb the integrity of why I've done this. I've done this because I love sharing the nature with the public. It's not a financially based business, and it never will be. It comes from the heart. I did voluntary trips for people for a very, very large number of years before I opened. So as long as I can make a modest living and share the joy of the canal, that's my goal. And so people are literally, queuing up to, thank God, to go on the tours, and they're really enjoying them. Some of them are very quiet and tranquil, and then other ones I'm playing the guitar and I'm pounding out songs and having great crack with the kids. And 98% of my business is local community. So the trips can go from very quiet fishing trips and really, really very, very much kind of meditative experiences along the navigation, to just total raucous families singing songs, being together. Some musicians. I have the ukulele group here in Castleknock. Just 12 ukuleles going for it through the deep sink, just lighting up the place, to very, very pleasant mince pies and mulled wine through the deep sink at the Christmas time. Summertime, teenagers just taking up on the roof, taking selfies, and then everybody falling eventually under the spell of the flora and the fauna that's there to enjoy, and ultimately completely digitizing themselves from the outside world, and just getting into really the sounds, the smells, and the experience of just being out of, like, the canal is kind of out of this world as we know it. It is a different time, it's a different pace of time and a different feel. So it's very much my joy to give that to people, and loads of different types of people, families, birthday parties for young, any age from maybe 3 to 100. And the boat is equipped. It's got a full comfortable bathroom. The stove keeps it very cozy all year round. So it really caters to the older person. It caters to people who have maybe hip replacement, can't walk around too much. This gives them an opportunity to sit on the bow, and I take them for a walk on the canal at a kind of a walking pace. So the healing aspect of the trips are fantastic as well. Anything from just 2 people, which is, say 2 people would be €50 per person, to bring them for an afternoon, to a full boat of 12 people. The ideal number is around 10, but it's really every single person, fishermen, photographers, artists. The boat can be used for counselling sessions. It can be used for jewellery workshops, which is a great thing for hens to do. Maybe before they go out on the RAS, they can come to the boat and do a lovely jewellery workshop to make some jewellery, and just enjoy the nature around them to proceed their night out. And
you mentioned there it's €50 for each person in general.
Yeah, no, it's usually 20. It's from €20 per person. It's only 50 if there's just 2 people on the private charter, because it's a little bit more expensive because there's only 2. But if there's over 10 people, it's €20 a head. So the basic price is between 20 say and €25 per person, and €15 per child. That includes tea, coffee and hot chocolate, and then passengers are encouraged to bring a picnic or actually the 12th Lock itself, the hotel here, I work with them, and they will serve to the boat. So you can have a lovely breakfast or brunch brought to the barge before we set off. Or you can have a meal from the barge, or we can work out deals where you have lunch first and then take a cruise, or have your lunch after the cruise. So it's a very relaxed way that's really focused on what the passenger would like from the day.
And I just want to be sure about the price. So say if there's 3 or 4 people, what does that work out as? Like?
€100.
Right.
Yeah.
€100 for 3 or 4 people.
It's €100. So for 5 people, the trips are, say, €125, and that covers 5 people.
Oh.
If it's 4 people, it'd be €30 a head, and so on. Okay. So it's 25. Basically, it's €25 per person, based on a trip for 4 people.
So, any group over 4 people, they pay €25 each.
That's right. That's exactly it.
And if it's 2 people, they pay 50 each, and if it's 3 people, they pay what?
30, yeah.
30, 3 people, so that's cool. Yeah.
And also, if there's a good group, regular customers, I'm always good to do a deal. And also, to be honest with you, the important part of this work is to make sure to cater to everyone's budget. So if somebody doesn't have the funds to do the full kind of 3-hour cruise, you can do a shorter cruise, or get a bargain out of me, and I really want people to experience it. But the basic price is €25 per head. Yeah.
Cool. And how do you advertise your boat trips?
I have a website.
Apart from this interview.
Yes, indeed, and thank you for that. Well, I advertise on Facebook, and it's word of mouth and local community telling each other about the experiences, and the reviews, I must say, on Facebook have been they've been so fantastic, and it's really been enough to keep me very busy, I must say. I'll be launching a website to have a website. I am Royal Canal Boat Trips.ie. So there'll be a website there, and people will be able to interact a little bit more with that. I'll also have a blog all about the repairs and maintenance and all the... So the people who like that kind of boring maintenance stuff can listen in to those blogs. And I'm also a songwriter, so there'll be a lot of music there. I'm a jewellery designer, so there'll be jewellery for sale. So the website will incorporate a more formalised version of what I'm now becoming very comfortable doing. It grew very organically from the start. So yes, the website is coming, and performances on the roof, musicians, bands, and all sorts of wonderful plans in the future.
And it's amazing. You're only doing your tours like about a year, yeah? Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
Are you the only person, I think as my friend said to me, are you the only person on this stretch or on the whole Royal Canal that does these boat trips?
No, there's a few wonderful companies. On this stretch, I'm the only person doing it, and the deep sink is very narrow, so it's not really, I don't know if it would be possible for 2 boats to be running trips daily on it the way that I'm doing. But there's all sorts of industry potential along the navigation, particularly with the Greenway coming. So it's a wonderful opportunity for people to think about what kind of business they'd like to maybe run on the canal. But we've got the Barrow Line Cruisers, bargetrip.ie, running trips on the Grand Canal. Wonderful. They have their own they brew their own beer, and there's all sorts of fantastic options there as well. You've got the Barrow Line Cruisers. I rent my barge on the Royal Canal. If you want a holiday or to spend a weekend on the boat, Rent My Barge is a fantastic boat owned by Pat and Mary, a wonderful couple, and you can take the boat for a weekend or a week or 2 weeks indeed, and have a really amazing holiday. So those are the ones that I can just think of off the top of my head.
I was just going to finish up there, but you were telling me before the interview that you wanted to talk about a man called Dick Warner or something. He made a documentary or something.
Yeah.
Want to say a bit about that?
Yeah, Dick Warner. I suppose you could say that he'd be just maybe my favourite person on the canal. I was very lucky to be involved in a documentary that he subsequently won a BAFTA for, actually, after he he made it. It was aired first, I think, in 2011, and I had the great pleasure of being involved in one of the episodes. It was episode 2. And I was working on the barge, and I happened to bump into him on the towpath, and I told him I'd love to sing a song as he went through on the Rambler for his documentary about the Rambler coming from Dublin and making it back to Longford, back to the Shannon. Before the lifting bridge in Dublin came along, it was kind of stuck there because the chambers on the Royal Canal are 70 foot long, on the Grand they're 60 foot long. So he couldn't make the railway built the railway over the canal, and the boat couldn't get back. So this is Dick Warner's magnificent documentary called Waterways, all about the Ramblers' journey back down the Royal Canal for the first time since the 70s, I think.
Okay, it's great talking to you, Jenny. Just you mentioned there you're on Facebook and you're going to get a website soon. If people want to get in touch with you to go on a boat trip, what's the name of the company again?
Yeah, it's called Royal Canal Boat Trips, and it's on Facebook. But if you're not on Facebook, you can still get the contact from the internet and Google also, Royal Canal Boat Trips. Or my phone number is 087 9377 588. So that's 087 9377 588. And most people book through just giving me a bell, or if you message me on Messenger or email royalcanalboattrips@gmail.com. You can get me that way as well, and send a message about how we'd communicate then to organise and book a trip.
It's great talking, Jenny. I was on your boat a few weeks ago, as you know. My friend, a friend of a friend, invited me on. So it's a great experience. I've been living in this part of Dublin for about 30 years, but I've never actually, it was my first time actually being on the barge of the Royal Canal. It gives you a different perspective when you're looking out on going by Castleknock train station, for example, where I used to live on the other side. It's a nice different perspective, It's great talking to you. Good luck with the business, and I'll be talking again at some stage. Thanks very much. Right.
Thanks a million for having me, Darren. Delighted to talk to you. Cheers.